Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another episode of Shadow the Demon Lord Talk. This is episode number 84, and today I'm going to be talking about, this is another in my villains series, and I'm taking a different approach with this one. This one is actually a villain that I'm bringing in to the Shadow the Demon Lord campaign. From outside. This is actually from a movie or a movie franchise, which is the Jeepers Creepers franchise. But before I jump into that, just a few things I'd like to touch on up front. The first thing is that there is a new Kickstarter that just started a few days ago. And I forget exactly what it was called. When the Wolf Howls, I think. And let me see if I can pull it up here. When the Wolf Comes. So this, let's see, this Kickstarter started a few days ago. There's 25 days to go as of today, which is July 16th. And it uses the Shadow the Demon Lord game engine. But it is an RPG set in the Viking verse. Now, I don't know anything about the Viking verse, but apparently it's an RPG universe set in the future, but has a Viking theme to it. So there's instead of the apocalypse, there's Ragnarok going on, and since it's set in the future, well, it's set in a futuristic setting, I should say, because I don't think this is the real world, or our world set in the future. I believe this is like its own universe that uses the Viking mythology, and plus it has science fiction elements to it. So, sounds interesting. I will probably back it. I haven't as of yet, but it looks like it's already funded, so we're good to go. As far as that goes, there's the what the book's going to look like, and I don't even know what all the perks are going to be, and all the various different stretch goals, but I'm sure they'll be nice, and more Demon Lord. So wanted to mention that. So you have 25 days to go out and pledge on this sucker. So I know I will do so, and I encourage you all to support Shadow the Demon Lord. All right, so that was that. There's also something that came out recently for Punk Apocalyptic, No Step on Sneck, which is a looks like a starting adventure for Punk Apocalyptic. So that's out there on Drive-Thru RPG. I know it's not Shadow the Demon Lord, but we're still in the same family here. So I've already got mine. So go out to Drive-Thru RPG and check it out. Also, since we're on the subject of Drive-Thru RPG, something else that recently came out. Let's see if I can find it. Schwab Entertainment. Aha. Okay. So we have You Will Feel a Slight Pinch. That came out, I think, a couple weeks ago. And this is also another villain. This time it's a goblin surgeon. And he works out of Gateway. You know what? I'm actually going to do an adventure in Gateway. I might have to put him in there. So this is Dr. Touch. So, yeah. Pick that up on Drive-Thru RPG for $1.99. And I think that's the latest and greatest. So I wanted to mention those before we head into the main topic of today's video. And that topic is the Creeper. All right. So This is one of my favorite horror movie franchises, Jeepers Creepers. There's 3 movies in the series, but the only one I recommend is the first one. The second one is okay, not as good as the first one. The third one is not great. It was like a straight to the Sci-Fi Channel type movie. Not great. But, for a cheesy Saturday afternoon, got nothing better to watch movie, it's all right. Plus, it's got the creeper in it. So the Jeepers Creepers franchise features this guy who we really don't know what he is. He could be a demon. He could be some cursed dude. Not really sure. But he's really a cool adversary, especially in the first movie. And so I thought, after I watched it recently, I thought this would be a really cool guy to have in an adventure. And so I kind of envision this as a low expert tier adversary, or maybe high novice. No, not high novice. Low expert tier. So this guy is tough in the movie. In fact, he's practically impossible to kill. And again, we don't know if he's a demon or what, but he's kind of reminiscent of the Harvesters in Shadow of the Demon Lord, because whenever his body takes damage, it regenerates. And he can also replace body parts by consuming body parts from his victims. So, like I said, it's kind of reminiscent of the Harvesters. Not exactly, because the Harvesters like to replace their body parts surgically, but this guy replaces them by in a worse way, by eating the body part from his victim. And pretty gory, but there's also this lore built around this guy that has slowly been building over the last 3 movies. But I wanted to kind of throw all that into this video, and then you can kind of craft your own scenario or adventure around that. But really, just kind of following the formula of the first movie would work. So let's kind of give you a quick overview of the first movie, and this, of course, will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie that's 20 years old, and you want to, then don't watch the rest of this video. But having said that, the first movie basically focuses on two college kids. They're on their way home, and they happen to pass by this abandoned church, and they see this guy in a trench coat, black trench coat, essentially hauling something out of his truck, like something that's wrapped up in this bloody tarp, and he tosses it in this pipe that goes into the ground, this big ass pipe. And it's right next door to an abandoned church. So they see this and they immediately figure something bad is up with this guy. So they're heading down the road, and this guy spots them on the road. So he hops in his truck, follows them, and his truck is a badass truck. I mean, it's like a big army tank, essentially. And it's got some kind of souped up engine in it. But anyway, it motors down this road after them, and he starts, ramming them. And his license plate says BEATNU, beating you. But actually, we learned that it's not beating you; it's eating you. Anyway, so he eventually goes around them, and he causes them to go off the road. He goes around them and continues on down the road. So the 2 kids are off the side of the road, and they're like, we got to call the cops. And the girl's like, no, this is bad. This is what people do in horror movies to get them killed. And the kid's like, what if it was you that was thrown into that pipe? And so she's like, okay. So they go back to see what the heck is in the pipe. And the boy, the brother, they're his brother and sister. So the brother, he goes into the pipe accidentally. She kind of accidentally drops him in and finds a body down there wrapped up. So he unties the wrap and finds the person still alive. The person has been surgically worked on and sewn back up. and he's like gasping, can't talk, and then he dies. And so the brother is like freaking out. He walks through this sub basement of the church that's right next door, and he finds this table that has all kinds of weird, rusty, archaic instruments on it. And then he notices something's dripping from the ceiling. He looks up, and the entire ceiling is just plastered with naked bodies, like hundreds of naked bodies. So he makes his way out of the church, and he goes to his sister. They get in the car and they go to the nearest town. And they try to call the cops, and in the process, they get this psychic woman who calls them on the phone, and she tells them basically about, that she knows that she has dreamed about this and them, and that, the song Jeepers Creepers, run away when you hear Jeepers Creepers. So anyway, this whole thing builds to the point where these two college kids encounter the creeper at this woman's house, and the creeper is always in shadows until he's finally revealed. But even then, he's kind of shadowy, which made me think of, him being as a demon in the game. And so he is, he kind of taunts them. He kills, the old woman that lives in the house. Then he kind of taunts them on the road. They hop in the car and they're getting ready to leave, but he's in the middle of the road. So she tries to run over him. He hops over the car. She tries to back up over him. He hops over the car again. And then she finally rams into him and hits him. He flies up in the air and drops onto the ground. And she backs up over him, runs over him again, backs over him again, and runs over him again. And so he's good and plastered on the road, but even then he's not dead. He twitches a little bit after being still, and then something pops out of his trench coat, and it looks like a wing, a leathery wing. And then it tries to flap, and she's like, screw this, and she runs over him again and then heads on down the road. So they're freaked out. They go to the nearest police station. So it turns out that this creeper is in the road, and he makes his way to the police station. So after being run over multiple times and basically flat on the road, he's hobbling down the road, and he gets to the police station. So he apparently has regenerative capabilities outside of eating people to replace body parts. So he regenerates, goes to the police station, where he finds a victim in the police jails to replace his damaged leg. One of his legs was irreparably damaged, apparently. And so he's chomping on this guy, and the police spot him. And so he goes loose in the police station, starts killing police left and right. So the two kids are in the police station. The psychic woman shows up. They try to escape. The creeper basically corners them in one of the interrogation rooms, sniffs out one of the two, and then takes the boy, flies to a new lair, and in an abandoned factory, and basically takes the boy's eyes, because his eyes, when you finally get a good look at him, you can see his eyes are like glazed over, like he's got cataracts. And so at the very end, he kills the boy and takes his eyes, and you can see that his eyes are now in his head. So that is in the first movie. Then the second movie, you see more of him replacing body parts. In fact, he replaces his whole head by ripping the head off of some teenager and then eating the head, and then the head kind of makes its way back up and replaces his damaged head. So there's a lot of this creature's lore that's kind of built up over the three movies. And so, again, this is just an excellent adversary to have in an adventure, but with a caveat. As portrayed in the movies, this monster is impossible to kill. The only way that you can kill it is by waiting out its term. Now, what do I mean by that? So, part of the lore of this monster is that it is only active in the mortal world every spring, or every 23rd spring, for 23 days. And then at the end of the 23 days, it shrivels up, becomes essentially a mummy for another 23 years. And then it becomes active again and repeats the cycle. So the only way to kill it really is to wait it out until it's in its hibernation state. And then you're not even really killing it. It's just out of commission. So to put this in an adventure would be challenging because you can't kill the thing. All you can do is to, wait it out. So you would have to have an adventure that is close to the end of its 23-day cycle before the player characters encounter it, like in the movie, and then, like in the second movie, and then at the end of the adventure, they don't even defeat it. It essentially just kind of shrivels up. And then you could bring it back like 23 years later, and then maybe as master tier characters, they can find some way to kill it. So, anywho, that is, that's the caveat with this, with the creeper being a monster in the game, is that if you run it as it is portrayed in the movies, then basically it's impossible to kill. So what I tried to do is I tried to come up with some ideas of how to make this a monster in the game. So I came up with some stats. I used actually a medium-sized demon as a template. And I tried to come up with some stats. Now, if I actually ran this in an adventure, I'd probably redo the stats a little bit. I'd have to tweak a little bit. This is like my first draft, but I'll throw it up on the show notes for this video and let you guys tear it apart. But anyway, here are my bullet points that I wanted to include in the creation of this thing for the game. So first of all, it does not communicate verbally, though it appears to be highly intelligent. It uses head gestures, winks. It uses its tongue, etc., to convey simple messages to its prey, like "I'm going to eat you." It enjoys whistling. It likes stalking its prey. It makes a show of sniffing them, even from a distance, to incite fear. And there's something in their fear that causes it to want to eat them more for whatever reason. That's not really explained in the movie too much. It enjoys playing with its intended victims, such as encouraging a showdown on the road, sniffing them out, flying off, playing dead, lulling them into a false sense of security, etc. It replaces damaged body parts by eating parts from its victims. It likes to take its victims back to its house of pain, still alive if possible, to add to its trophies. And it will attempt to escape if its damage is nearing its health maximum. So the creeper is, and you can't really read this. Let me get back out of this and let's take a look at there we go. This is my Roll20 where I created him. All right, so here's the creeper. And I have him as difficulty 100, and I'm not really sure if that's too low or if it should be a 250. But I wanted this to be a low expert tier monster, so I really didn't want it to be 250. But he's kind of tough. So right off the bat, we have a perception of 14. Well, it's a size 1 horrifying creature, demon. Perception of 14 with true sight. He's got a defense of 18. Now, I don't like the defense of 18. That seems high. This creature gets hit a lot in the movies, so he's not particularly difficult to hit. He's just hard to kill. And so I would consider lowering that defense of 18 to probably something like 16, maybe even 15. He's got a lot of health, so he's got 100 health. And so even in the low expert tier, it's going to take a while for him to for his health to actually, or his damage actually get to match his health. So might actually consider lowering his health also. So 17 strength, 13 agility, 12 intellect, 17 will. Then he's a flyer. He's got bat wings, so he's a flyer, and with a fly speed of 18. I gave him 5 insanity and 5 corruption because he just seems crazy and corrupt. So immunities. He's got the typical demon immunities: disease, poison, gaining insanity, dazed, fatigued, frightened, immobilized, impaired, poisoned, slowed, stunned, and then I added incapacitated. So we'll talk about that here in a sec. He's got a spell defense, which is typical for demons, and then he has his demonic shadows. All right, so the demonic talent that I gave him, I actually gave him a couple. I gave him Acts of Chaos, and I gave him the immunity to incapacitation, which I made up. So the creature remains active for 23 days every 23 years. During its active time, it is immune to becoming incapacitated. When the creeper takes enough damage to equal its health score, it drops prone and defenseless and becomes immune to any additional damage until the end of the round. At the end of the round, it immediately heals 3d6 damage. It only truly becomes incapacitated at midnight of its 23rd day of activity, in which it shrivels up into a cocoon of its own making and remains in a mummified hibernation state until 23 years pass. Any attempts to destroy its body during its hibernation fail, as its body becomes immune to taking damage while in this state. So that makes him pretty much impossible to kill. Maybe there is a way to kill it, but maybe that as part of the higher level adventure, when they encounter him after 23 years, they discover the means to actually kill the creeper. But until then, he is unkillable. Natural weapon, he's +7 to hit with 2 boons for 3d6 damage. He's got an Axe of Chaos. So, and he uses his axe in the second and third movie. I think more so the third movie. And he has this axe, which is pretty badass. So I was reading through the demonic talents in Hunger in the Void, and I like the Axe of Chaos. So I gave him an Axe of Chaos. And the Axe of Chaos basically says that any creature that takes damage from this weapon gains 1 corruption. Excuse me. The weapon dissolves into foul-smelling ash when the demon becomes incapacitated at the end of its 23rd day of activity. Then it also has Bone Shuriken. Now, Bone Shuriken is something that is seen in the second movie. And the Bone Shuriken is used to cause this school bus full of high school kids to be trapped out in the middle of nowhere for the creeper to essentially stalk them. And it is strong enough to puncture one of the big ass tires on a school bus. Actually, 2 of them. And so the Bone Shuriken is a weapon that he uses, and basically it's medium range +3 with 2 boons. Does 2d6 damage. So for special attacks, I gave him multi-attack. The creeper may use an action to make 2 attacks with its natural weapon, its Axe of Chaos, or may make 1 attack with its natural weapon or Axe of Chaos, and another attack with its Bone Shuriken. So it can make 2 natural weapon attacks, or it can make a natural weapon attack and an Axe of Chaos attack, or it can make 2 Axe of Chaos attacks, or it can make a Axe of Weapon attack and a Bone Shuriken attack, or it can make an Axe of Chaos attack and a Bone Shuriken attack. Any combination of those, it's got 2 attacks that it can use on its turn, on its action. Then I also gave him Awesome Strike just because I thought it was pretty awesome. Whenever the demon gets a success on an attack roll using its natural weapon, and the total of the roll was 15 or higher, the target must get a success on a strength challenge roll or fly 2d6 yards in straight line away from the demon, landing prone. So I believe this is another demonic talent that I pulled out of Hunger in the Void. It may have been from the core rulebook. I forget, but I liked it, so I added it. Then, of course, it's got Void Step. And then I added Feed. As a special action, the creeper may spend its action feeding on a chosen incapacitated victim. Doing so immediately removes all damage from the creeper and restores any missing body parts, even the head. So that's the way it can spend one action eating a body part or eating, whatever it needs off of its incapacitated victim, and then it's completely healed, including any parts that are missing. And then end of round, the creeper heals 3d6 damage. So at the end of every round, he regenerates 3d6 damage, making him even harder to kill, which is why I'm thinking about, I'm thinking that the health of 100 is probably too high, especially for a difficulty 100 creature. And the defense is definitely too high. I would put that down to 15, and I maybe cut the health in half. Maybe put it at 50 or 60. So anyway, that's my idea of the creeper. I kind of dig it, but I can't run it in my current campaign because there's really no place to put it. I've already planned it out through the master tier, so this may have to wait until a future campaign, but or maybe a one shot. But anyway, that's the creeper. Now, how could you make this creeper into an actual game or an adventure if he's unkillable? Well, like I mentioned earlier, the best way to do that would be to set the adventure around the end of his 23-day cycle. So it's basically a countdown until the creature is, defeats itself and goes into its mummified state. So, the PCs fight it until they've exhausted their resources, and then the thing kind of shrivels up right at the end. And then it's up to the PCs to figure out what to do with it. So that is how that adventure would have to play out. Now, to put a little bit of the movie and some lore around this, you would want to include some of the elements from the movie. So I got a couple things here. First of all is the creeper's truck. Now, of course, in the movie, it's actually a big-ass truck. Since Shadow the Demon Lord is not in modern times, it can't really be a truck per se, but it could be like a large metal wagon, maybe steam powered, maybe just powered by magic, some kind of horseless wagon, or maybe with horses, just demonic horses or something like that. But I kind of like the idea of a horseless wagon, maybe the wagon itself is a demon, and that's kind of what I presented here. The wagon is an actual demon in the form of a metal wagon, not unlike the vehicles that are in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. So just kind of like a demonic vehicle. And so the Creeper's Demon Truck has a lot of special abilities. I'm not going to read through them all. Actually, just watch the third movie, the sci-fi movie, and the truck is really featured more prominently in that movie than the other two. And the truck has all these little interesting little traps and features that it can do. So I added those, like I added a cavernous maw, painful weapon, horn of doom. It's got this badass horn, and the horn essentially freaks out whoever can hear it. But the truck itself is kind of just the creeper's way of getting around. It's not the villain itself, but when the creeper traps somebody or captures somebody, keeps it in the truck, and that's when the truck can become an adversary, is when you have somebody stuck in the truck that's trying to get out. But the truck itself is not meant to be a combatant unless the creeper wants it to be a combatant. So I will put the Creeper's Demon Truck stats up on the show notes as well. And so you'll want to include that at some point. So, maybe the characters are, traveling down the road on a normal wagon, and then this demonic truck just comes up and starts ramming them from behind and causes them to go off the road. And then it continues on down the road. That pisses off the player character, so they go after him, and they find that this demonic truck is kind of parked off next to an abandoned church. And they see this big ass pipe sticking out of the ground as a way in. They can either go in that way or they can go in through the church. And then they find the Creeper's House of Pain. So the Creeper's House of Pain is the lair where it can take its victims' bodies as trophies. It repairs the bodies and adheres them to the walls and ceilings of the lair. That's, of course, after he takes out whatever part of them he's going to eat. Then he likes to play music while working on his victims. So he'll have like a record player, maybe an old-time record player going with songs from the 50s, 40s, 50s, like Jeepers Creepers. I don't know when that's from, but anyway, that's the song that's in the first movie. And then his lairs are generally underground or in abandoned structures, such as a church basement or an abandoned factory, which are the two that are featured in the first movie. And I would just keep it at that. I would keep it as it depicted in the first movie. An underground basement right next to an abandoned church. That way you can add the abandoned church. You can put a couple of encounters in there. Like there's like a flock of ravens that are in the movie that are sitting on this church. You could have them be kind of the demons' watchdogs and have them attack if they try to enter the church. But at any rate, this is what the House of Pain kind of looks like. That's the pipe that the college kid came through. I think his name was Dory, something like that. And then all these people are just like adhered to the wall and ceiling of this place, and buck naked. So yeah, this is an excellent, very evocative lair for the villain. Now, the lair itself doesn't necessarily have any special abilities in the movie, but you could have all these bodies animate as, to add the creepiness factor, and have the bodies animate moaning and screaming in pain and all that as the characters are fighting the creeper in his lair. So that would be one way, and that could be like the opening encounter, and then you could have the creeper escape, and then they encounter him later, maybe in a town or in a small village that has a constable's building, and you can replay that scene if you want to. Or you could just have the whole, have it a short adventure and have it culminate in the Creeper's House of Pain. Regardless, again, I would have it culminate with the fact that his time on Earth is coming to an end, and the end of the battle actually wraps up with the demon mummifying himself and cocooning himself. So that is it for the Creeper. Again, I just love this monster. I love those movies, and I think he would be a fantastic addition to a Shadow of the Demon Lord game. So tell me what you think, and if you think the stats that I created for this guy are too much or not enough, let me know. Maybe the axe of Chaos Axe needs to have more abilities, or I just thought of one thing that I forgot. There's a dagger that's featured in the second movie that is used against the Creeper. So, maybe the player characters come across an enchanted dagger that could be used to kill the Creeper. It actually doesn't in the second movie. He's like stabbed repeatedly with the dagger, but it doesn't kill him. At least I think he's stabbed with the dagger. Maybe he's not stabbed with the dagger. I forget. Anyway, so there you go. Shadow of the Demon Lord Talk number 84. Your villain for this episode is the Creeper. Tell me what you think. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, and hail to the Demon Lord. Hey, turn this damn thing off.